Have you ever wondered how one of the most famous entertainers in history went from being adored by millions to standing at the center of one of the most controversial criminal trials the world has ever seen? For decades, Michael Jackson was more than just a musician. He was a global phenomenon. His music broke records, his performances redefined pop culture, and his influence stretched across generations and continents. To his fans, he was the undisputed king of pop, a once-in-a-lifetime talent whose creativity and generosity inspired millions. But in the early 2000s, the conversation surrounding Michael Jackson changed dramatically. Headlines were no longer focused on chart-topping albums or sold-out concerts. Instead, they centered on criminal allegations, police investigations, and a courtroom battle that would divide public opinion for years to come. The controversy reached a boiling point when authorities launched a major investigation involving Neverland Ranch, the sprawling California estate that had become one of the most recognizable celebrity homes in the world. For years, Neverland Ranch had been portrayed as a magical paradise, complete with amusement rides, a private zoo, movie theaters, and elaborate attractions. It looked more like a fantasy theme park than a private residence. To supporters of Michael Jackson, the property represented his attempt to create the childhood he felt he had missed while performing as a child star. To critics, however, it raised troubling questions about why so many children spent time there. When law enforcement officials arrived at Neverland Ranch with search warrants, the images quickly spread across television screens around the world. News helicopters hovered above the property, while reporters gathered outside the gates hoping to capture every development. Cameras followed investigators as they searched the estate as part of an ongoing criminal investigation. Suddenly, the private world of Michael Jackson became the focus of intense public scrutiny. Every detail of the search was analyzed, every rumor became a headline, and every new report fueled even more speculation. The investigation eventually led to one of the most shocking moments in celebrity history. Authorities issued an arrest warrant for Michael Jackson, accusing him of multiple counts related to child molestation. The accusations stunned fans around the world. For many people, it was difficult to reconcile the image of the beloved entertainer with the serious allegations being presented by prosecutors. Yet for others, the accusations seemed to confirm suspicions that had been circulating for years. Overnight, the debate became global. People were forced to choose sides, and emotions ran high on both ends of the argument. As news coverage intensified, the world became fascinated with every aspect of the case. Television networks provided non-stop updates. Newspapers dedicated front-page coverage to the investigation. Talk shows invited legal experts, psychologists, former associates, and celebrity commentators to discuss the unfolding drama. The story was impossible to escape. No matter where you lived, chances were you heard about the allegations against Michael Jackson. It was one of those rare moments when celebrity culture, criminal justice, and public fascination collided on a massive scale. When the trial finally began, the atmosphere surrounding the courthouse was unlike anything many reporters had ever witnessed. Fans gathered in large numbers, carrying signs declaring their support for Michael Jackson. Some wore clothing inspired by his iconic stage outfits. Others sang his songs while waiting outside. At the same time, critics and protesters also appeared, demanding accountability and justice. The scene often felt more like a major entertainment event than a criminal proceeding. One observer famously described entering the courthouse and feeling as though they had stepped into a circus rather than a courtroom. Despite the chaos outside, the proceedings inside were deadly serious. Prosecutors argued that Michael Jackson had used his fame, wealth, and influence to gain access to children and develop relationships that crossed legal boundaries. According to the prosecution, the case was not about music, celebrity status, or public image. It was about determining whether crimes had been committed. They believed that the evidence would demonstrate a pattern of behavior that warranted criminal conviction. Central to the prosecution's case was the testimony of a young accuser. When the boy took the witness stand, many people inside the courtroom were struck by how young and vulnerable he appeared. Witnesses later recalled that his testimony created an emotional atmosphere that was difficult to ignore. Some courtroom observers described feeling deeply affected as they listened to his account. The prosecution believed that the testimony offered a powerful narrative that would persuade jurors to see the case from the perspective of the alleged victim. Prosecutors also presented details about the relationship between Michael Jackson and children who spent time at Neverland Ranch. They argued that certain privileges and levels of access suggested unusually close relationships. One detail that attracted particular attention involved security codes and access to private areas of the property. According to testimony, some children allegedly had access to areas that even adults did not. Prosecutors suggested that these details supported their broader theory of the case. The defense team fought back aggressively. Attorneys representing Michael Jackson insisted that prosecutors had completely misinterpreted his behavior. They argued that his lifelong connection with children stemmed from his own unusual upbringing. Having spent much of his childhood performing and working in the entertainment industry, they claimed that Michael Jackson often felt more comfortable around children than adults. His lawyers portrayed him as a generous and compassionate individual who wanted to provide young people with experiences that he himself never had. The defense also challenged the credibility of the accusations. They argued that financial motivations played a significant role in the allegations. According to defense attorneys, certain individuals saw an opportunity to profit from the extraordinary wealth and fame of Michael Jackson. They suggested that false accusations could potentially lead to financial settlements or other benefits. Throughout the trial, the defense repeatedly emphasized this theme, portraying their client as the target of opportunistic individuals seeking money and attention. As weeks turned into months, the trial became a daily spectacle. New witnesses appeared regularly, each bringing fresh testimony that fueled public debate. Every statement was dissected by legal analysts and journalists. Every courtroom exchange generated headlines. Millions of people followed the case as though it were a television series, anxiously waiting to see what would happen next. One of the most talked about moments occurred when actor Macaulay Culkin took the witness stand. Known worldwide for his role in the hit film Home Alone, Macaulay Culkin had been one of the most visible child stars associated with Michael Jackson. Because of their friendship, many people viewed his testimony as highly significant. During his appearance, Macaulay Culkin strongly rejected any suggestion that he had experienced inappropriate behavior from Michael Jackson. He described the allegations as absurd and stated that his experiences did not match the accusations being presented in court. For supporters of Michael Jackson, the testimony from Macaulay Culkin represented a major turning point. They argued that someone who had spent considerable time around the entertainer would be in a position to know whether the allegations reflected reality. However, prosecutors maintained that every individual experience was different and that one witness could not automatically disprove another person's claims. The legal standard facing prosecutors was clear. They needed to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. This standard is intentionally high because criminal convictions carry serious consequences. Jurors had to determine not whether Michael Jackson seemed unusual or eccentric, but whether the evidence established criminal conduct beyond a reasonable doubt. That distinction became one of the most important aspects of the entire trial. Meanwhile, observers noted that Michael Jackson often appeared physically and emotionally exhausted. The stress of the proceedings seemed evident. Friends and associates later described him as frightened and overwhelmed by the possibility of losing everything he had spent decades building. His reputation, his freedom, and his legacy all appeared to hang in the balance. Many people believed they were witnessing the possible collapse of one of the greatest careers in entertainment history. A conviction could have permanently transformed how the world remembered Michael Jackson. His music, achievements, and cultural impact might forever be overshadowed by criminal findings. The stakes could hardly have been higher. At the same time, the case sparked larger conversations about celebrity culture and the justice system. Some argued that famous individuals receive special treatment because of their wealth and influence. Others insisted that celebrities can become easy targets because accusations against them attract enormous publicity. These debates extended far beyond the courtroom and became a major part of the public discussion surrounding the trial. Eventually, after months of testimony and arguments, the trial reached its final stage. The jury received instructions and retired to deliberate. Outside the courthouse, anticipation reached extraordinary levels. News organizations from around the world prepared for the verdict. Supporters gathered to pray for acquittal. Critics hoped for accountability. Everyone understood that a historic moment was approaching. When the verdict was finally announced, the world stopped to listen. After carefully reviewing the evidence, the jury found Michael Jackson not guilty on all counts. The courtroom reaction was immediate and emotional. Supporters celebrated what they viewed as a complete vindication. Many believed that justice had prevailed and that an innocent man had successfully defended himself against false accusations. Outside the courthouse, fans cheered, cried, and embraced one another. Yet, not everyone interpreted the verdict the same way. Critics argued that an acquittal did not necessarily answer every question raised during the trial. Some believed that the prosecution had simply failed to meet the demanding legal standard required for conviction. Others continued to express concerns about the broader issues highlighted during the proceedings. Regardless of individual opinions, one fact was undeniable. The trial changed the public image of Michael Jackson forever. Although he left the courtroom as a free man, the controversy never completely disappeared. Years later, documentaries, books, interviews, and investigative reports would continue revisiting the allegations and examining the events that unfolded during the trial. Today, the case remains one of the most controversial chapters in entertainment history. Some people view Michael Jackson as a misunderstood artist who endured years of false accusations and relentless media scrutiny. Others believe that important questions remain unanswered. The debate continues because the case touched on issues that extend beyond a single individual. It raised questions about fame, power, justice, public perception, and the challenges of determining truth in highly emotional situations. More than 2 decades later, the trial involving Michael Jackson still captivates audiences around the world. It remains a story filled with mystery, controversy, and intense disagreement. For some, it represents a triumph of the legal principle that guilt must be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. For others, it serves as a reminder of how complicated and emotionally charged certain cases can become. Whatever conclusion people reach, the story continues to fascinate because it involves one of the most recognizable figures in modern history. The verdict may have ended the courtroom battle, but it did not end the conversation. Even today, people continue to debate the evidence, revisit the testimony, and analyze the legacy of Michael Jackson. And perhaps that is why this case remains so compelling. It is not simply a story about a celebrity trial. It is a story about fame, perception, belief, and the enduring mystery surrounding one of the most influential entertainers the world has ever known.